Yeah, go for it. Okay, today's lesson is putting in a fake tail, both just putting it in normal and also braiding it in. Okay, so what we do is we take, and this fake tail has a huge lump here. It's not one of the nicer kinds, unfortunately. The new ones have a little tiny piece, and then it's really tight and gentle at the top, so this one's a little bit more difficult to work with. But the first thing I do is I look at it with the tail to see that it matches the length. And this horse's tail has already been trimmed. And then I mark with my thumb where I want it to be, and I grab that hair. Okay, and I grab everything on top. And the idea is, get these out of the way, is that I'm going to twist it up out of the way, take a hair clip, and grab on there. Alright, and then I'm going to take it back and look again. I'm going to match it up for my length, and it's about there. Okay, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, normally I would like to wet this to keep it extra tight. So I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to wet this section of the tail. Okay, match it up again so you make sure you get your placement right, and matching up the lengths. Okay, so at this point I'm going to reach in and grab a section of hair that I'm going to pull through my loop. Alright, and then I'm going to take a section next to it, and I want to get hair that's close to the tail. Alright, and the piece that you put through the fake tail is your centerpiece for your braid. So then you're going to take a piece on this side, okay, and you're going to crisscross over and just start braiding in. Take a look, make sure it's good before you go all the way down. Okay, and I'm just going to braid down a little bit here. Okay, and I'm going to put in a piece of matching colored yarn because you want this to be hidden. This is not a perfect match. I should have flaxen colored yarn, but white will work for right now. I braid down a little further. That's probably good. I don't want it too big. I take my one string, I wrap it around. I'd be careful not to get all my tail hairs in there. And I tie a knot. So now what you have is you have the tail hair braided at the top, you know, a fairly substantial piece that's holding it in. Okay, at this point, I can take my two pieces, excuse me, that was very rude, excuse me. Okay, thank you. So at this point, I'm going to take my two pieces of yarn, and I'm going to reach around to the tailbone, and what I would do is I would take this piece to this side without getting the hair. Actually, I'm going to try again here. So I reach in, I grab it, bring it around, just the yarn. I take this piece, I'm going to wrap it around the tailbone, and it's usually about a third of the way up the tailbone, these fake tails in general, give or take. Okay, and at this point I would tie a knot and secure it here. Okay, I'm not going to tie the knot right now, but you don't pull it so tight that you cut off circulation. Alright, and then what I would do is down below I would take two more tail hairs from the side from my horse's tail, and I'd take a tail hair from my fake tail, braid it again, and actually I'm running out of room. This pony's tail isn't long enough, but this will be on a bigger horse. So I would take two of my horse hairs, my fake hair, do another short braid, tie around and secure it. But the way that this fake tail fits, I don't have room for that. And then you'd bring this down and it would be hidden. I haven't tied it all the way, and you can see that it's going to be all hidden and nice and secure. Okay, so the reason I didn't tie it is because I want to show how to braid it in. And if I tie that piece, if I tie this piece around, then I can't get a good braid. So let's bring this back up out of the way so we can see what we're doing. Okay, and I'm going to untie that because my braid has to be able to come around from the back hairs. So at this point, since I have my knot, and I'm going to make sure it's secure, so I'm going to tie one more knot here. to make sure it's in. Cut it, and then I'm going to start braiding my hair. So I put it in first, and then I'm going to braid down just like normal. And you'll see when we get down to the bottom what it looks like. So you can turn that part off. This was, in this particular case, this pony had such a terrible top of his tail that I braided the top 2 parts and even a 3rd piece to give it more substance before I got started. And then okay, so for this particular fake braid, because it does have the giant knot, I went ahead and secured it like I did before, where after I braided the tail and I left the braid a little short, I took a braid at the top, at the very base of my braid, hooked it through the loop, braided down, and wrap my string around so we can cover that big knob as much as possible. And we brush it out and it looks beautiful. Now with better high quality tails, you can braid them up into the tail better. And there you go. We're going to put in another fake tail, and this one doesn't have the big ball like the other one. Still not as nice as the new fancy ones with the little tiny loop. This one has kind of a piece of wood going down, so it's a little thick. And I'm going to match up again my lengths going down, and that's about right. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to wet this under hairs, because when it's wet it helps braid tighter. And I'm going to take a center piece of hair in here, put it through my loop, keep my loop up tight, take another piece of hair that I'm going to, bring around, take a piece of hair from this side to start my braid. So then I start braiding down. So that braid's going to hold in the hair at the top. Now this one is going to be thin enough that we're going to be able to braid around it when we come down, which I'll show you when we get to that point. So I'm going to get my little piece of black hair here to tie this off. And not too far down. Make sure to just take my one piece around, tie it off. Don't shake. Okay, so then I take my 2 pieces and I'm going to tie this around the tailbone to hold it close. Okay, now I have to be careful that I don't go, let's see, am I going to be able to tie this around if I'm braiding it? I'm not sure. Actually, I won't have to, because when I come down and braid, it's going to tie right in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off these pieces here, and then I'll braid down over it and I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so now we've got our tail done with our fake tail braided in. It's a little bit thick at the bottom, but it's not a very good tail to be braided in. But now I'm going to show you how to wrap. So we take a ace bandage, and you're going to put it in your water bucket and you're going to squeeze many times, because you want to get this thing wet, and that helps keep your wrap on nice. Alright, so you start by putting it on, and you never do this super tight, okay? Let's see, I always start by crisscrossing. Actually, no, do I? Yeah. So I just start up high, up at the top of the tailbone, and I keep it really smooth. And as I go down, it's firm but not tight, because the last thing you want to do is cut off their circulation. Make sure you overlap your wrap each time as you go down. And make it all the way down. And this is going to help keep the tail clean, keep shavings out of it, keep it nice. Okay, go all the way to the bottom. And then as you're working your way back up, what I like to do is I like to keep, this is kind of a short one, is I like to keep some of it rolled. And when I get near the end, when I come around, I simply fold this in like this, and it will stay in. And that's how you wrap a tail. Usually this would be up higher. And there you go. Okay. So here we have another type of fake tail. This one has hair built into a curved fabric with a tie on the top. And this is kind of a harsh color for this horse, but we're hoping that it's going to cover up and match in, and we'll be braiding this in. So we're going to go ahead and tail hair through here, and we'll take it braid from this side and one from this side, and then this will get covered up with the braid when we French braid down. So in the meantime, we'll go ahead and just put this up tight, and then we'll line it up with his tailbone. He's moving it around quite a bit right now. And we will secure it. That's all you need.
Alright, I'm good.
Okay, and this is one of your higher quality fake tails where you have a really tiny loop in here, and you can see it's thin up here, so we'll be able to braid over this once we have it attached. And when you're braiding in, you're going to want to attach it in first before you braid in. Since this is thin and not like some of the others, it'll braid right over without causing any unsightly lumps. So this horse has a really long tail. We're going to line it up so that the height's where it needs to be. Now I'm going to get my comb. Now we're going to look here carefully. So we line it up, kind of mix the hairs together so it looks natural. About like that. Mark your spot on your tail. And then you want to take those hairs at that point, and again we're going to flip this one up, we're going to clip it out of the way, I'm going to wet it down, these top parts, so when I braid it in it'll stay really nicely. Now this one has a really small loop, so I might need to use my pull through to get hair in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to double check it before we put it in, that we have it at a good height, good length I mean, and a good height up here, and that looks about right, give or take. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, since this is so thin, I'm going to take a strand of hair close to the tailbone that's fairly thick because it has to hold the weight of your tail. Okay, so I pull that through, then I'm going to string it through my fake tail and pull it through, just like that. Now, I'm going to take my pieces on either side that I'm going to use for braiding in. So, double check one more time before you braid, and I think that's quite lovely. Good, same size hair on this side. And this is going to look very beautiful because it's the right tail for the job for a hunter. Okay, so then I'm going to braid this down into the tail. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and take my matching colored yarn. That's the short one, long one. I'll have to get another one, I dropped it. Oh, there it is, thank you. Okay. So I put my yarn in, braid down a little further, and I'll push him up because he's getting smashing me back here. Okay, just braid down a little bit, just enough to get your yarn, and tie it in. Okay. You don't want too much because you're going to have to braid over all of this, so you don't want it making too much of a mess. Okay, so I got that, and then I take my scissors and cut off the excess yarn because we don't need that laying around. Careful not to touch your horse's tail. Okay, just like that, and actually just to be extra secure, I might tie around it just one more time because it does have to carry a lot of weight. So I'd hate for this to come undone. So I'm going to go just one more time around it for extra security before I cut it. Okay. Now I'm going to just double check that when I braid down, this is on the tailbone already. So I take my hair down. I take a look. I got a nice full body. The length matches the horse's length. And when I braid around it, here's this horse's tailbone. It's going to come right about here. And it's going to look perfect. It'll look perfect. Alright, so I'm going to braid down and then I'll show the end product here at the end. So you can see this tail is a nice fake tail made for the hunter jumpers that you can braid over. And it fits in beautifully with this horse's tail. And that's the final product. So you can see it makes a big difference when you use the right kind of fake tail.
No.
So this is one of the nicer fake tails with the small loops, and it doesn't have a big huge piece under here. If we can go down with your light and you can see this tail. It's a rather full tail. Okay. Show this part again, because I'm just going to show that. There we go.